ACC catches up later this week. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And this, for a lot of people, is the unofficial kickoff to college football season. So you want to get locked and loaded with the best coverage you can find with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, including our guy Cam Underwood from State of the U, who gets many requests right here. So we were able to track him down before media days. Hopefully we can get his take after the players and the coaches, Mark Richt in particular, speak to the media. Cam, how you doing today?
I'm good. Just enjoying this beautiful South Florida summer. So, and always ready to talk some Miami Hurricanes football.
It feels like a South Florida summer up here in Connecticut. It's not like brutally hot, but man, the air is just full of humidity, and it's been like that for a long time. But that's all right. I don't complain. I'm not one of these people that complains about the summer. They complains when it's 60 because it's too cold, but when it hits 85, it's too hot, and there's only about a 10-degree range where they're not complaining. I seem to run into those people, and I don't want to be one of them for sure. All right, we got Jaquan Johnson. We've got Amon Richards heading their way to, I believe, Charlotte. Would it be Charlotte for the ACC would be my guest?
Yep, always.
All right, always in Charlotte. Mark Richt joins them as well. Which now leads me to a question that I'll ask you. Any particular messages being sent by selecting these two guys, or they're just the two most obvious choices?
I think that there's a little bit of a message. I mean, Jaquan Johnson got robbed from first-team All-American and first-team All-ACC just because there was a player from a rival school of Miami's who had a higher cachet as a recruit. So even though Jaquan Johnson had a better season narratively and, concretely in terms of statistics, the other player was placed above him on first-team All-ACC and first-team All-American. And I don't think that was deserved. And, Jaquan Johnson is probably one of your three best safeties in America. I mean, he's probably going to contend for first-team All-American status this year. So, he was – and I said it from the days that he was a recruit. His nickname has been the franchise because that's what he was at Miami Killian High School. Not a traditional power, but he was 4 times first team all-county in Miami-Dade County high school football at the largest classification grouping, which only a handful of players have ever done. So that's the kind of talent we're talking about with him. And he's the leader of the team, the leader of the defense, definitely. He might not be the rah-rah guy, but, I mean, he just does his job, and he does a lot of different jobs and does them really, really well. So, giving him kind of that media spotlight now. So instead of just kind of being a dude who did a lot of things and compiled these statistics, but putting him out there so you see his face, you hear his voice and things like that. I think that that's a message just, for Miami saying, look, this guy is great. Like, he's a great college football player, and the nation should know his name. So Jaquan Johnson may be stepping up to that level. The other thing, Amon Richards, freshman All-American in 2016, battled injuries, which led to some inconsistencies in 2017, but he's Biletnikoff Award talent if he's, on his game and healthy. And I think that being on his game and being healthy kind of went hand in hand because his lack of health or his injury. He had a hamstring for a while, and then he hurt his meniscus, and he ended up missing the last couple of games. I think that really zapped him from being able to have the impact as a sophomore that we saw him have as a freshman. So, when you have one of the top 5 most talented and best wide receivers in America, you're going to put him up there as well to say, look, and for Amon Richards, this is a reintroduction to the national stage because he took he broke Michael Irvin's freshman receiving record in 2016. He was, catching all these passes from Amon Richards. He had 140-something yards in that first big road game at Appalachian State when we blew them, out and everything and did that. But, yeah, just reintroducing himself to the national stage. So I think that, that's a good move for both of those players. The other kind of thing that I mentioned on Twitter kind of in passing and didn't really dig into it is I think Mark Richt is being nice by not taking Malik Rozier because it's very infrequent that you have a fifth-year senior returning starter with the numbers and statistics that Malik Rozier had. You're talking about 3,120 yards passing, between passing and running was responsible for the most touchdowns of any single player in Miami Hurricanes history last year. You know, you have all these things. You know, he's 11-3 as a starting quarterback. Like, there's a lot there that you're like, hey, this is the guy. I mean, the quarterback should be the mouthpiece, the face of your team, but he's not necessarily the greatest quarterback. You know, when he's good, he's great. When he's not good, he's pretty terrible. There's no in between. So it was kind of like 1/3 of the time elite and 2/3 of the time trash for him. And I mean, and that's just what it was. Now, obviously, I hope that he's better. I mean, you have 41% completions over your last 3 games, that losing streak, 51% completions for the entire year. Even when guys are wide open, you're missing guys and some of those things. But it would have been, I think all of those things, the negatives of Malik Rogier's performance, I think that would have been the center of conversation had he been one of the players taken to ACC Media Days. We're not going to talk about the 3,120 yards and 28 touchdowns. We're going to talk about what happened in those last 3 games when you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, when you're in a boat in the middle of the ocean, you couldn't hit water. What happened with I think that's where the conversation would have been, and I don't think it would have relented, because at ACC Kickoff, you have these journalists from all over the ACC, so everybody gets to ask their couple of questions. So if I'm a Louisville guy, I'm going to ask you these couple of things. If I'm Boston College guys, I'm going to ask you these couple of things because you go up to Chestnut Hill this year on a Friday night. So, okay, well, you know, you played a couple tough defenses, you struggled against them. Boston College has a tough defense. Why is that going to be different? What are you worried or concerned about? And it was a little thing. And, so I wrote up a quick piece like, yeah, we took Amon or are taking Amon and Jaquan. But I honestly think that it is very generous of Mark Richt to not take Malik Rogier to ACC Media Days or ACC Kickoff, they call it this week. And, there are a couple factions of the Miami fan base that, I am very excited still about N'Kosi Perry, even if, he didn't win the job as a freshman. I think that the potential is still there. A larger part of the fan base still is clamoring for Jaron Williams, who I think is very good, even if he might need maybe a season, not a couple seasons, but maybe a season or a couple games before the game starts to slow down for him and he's able to really produce at the college level that way. But when you have members and factions in the fan base already who are at least on some level maybe looking towards another quarterback already, and the last 3 games were negative because of, in large part, but not entirely, in large part to some failings by that quarterback, leaving him at home, I think was the good thing to do. So yeah, just Jaquan and Amon, hey, here's the national stage, introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself. And Malik Rogier, we're going to just leave you at home, and maybe you're, going to be on the practice field working some routes on air with some of those other guys.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, bringing you the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. And then, of course, some analysis from myself as we get set for Media Days in 3 of the major conferences. The ACC kicks off on a Wednesday with the Atlantic and the Coastal going at it on 2 of those days. However, they've got it sliced. Well, Wednesday is, of course, Miami at 4:15 Eastern time. So the players and the coaches, Mark Richt, of course, in particular, speaking to the media. And as Cam outlines, covering this now from afar, but for 7 years, I covered the SEC on site. And yes, there was always just a thought process by the media as to why did these guys get selected? And it could usually be figured out that some coaches would just flat out select their best players on offense and defense. Then there would be others that would think, okay, it's obvious to everyone who the best offensive and defensive players are, and they're going to get pub all season, and they did last season. So I want to select a guy who's under the radar, who's a really good citizen, does a great job, impact player, but not a star. I want to get him some pub. Or I notice Cam all the time, offensive linemen get spotlighted, and I think it's for good reason.
Yeah,
unless you're an All-American, you don't hear from this guy all season, and let's give the offensive lineman, if he's really good, let's give him some time.
Exactly. You might hear from the left tackle, during the season, but other than that, you're probably not going to hear from an offensive lineman, your number 63 right guard kind of a thing. Like, they're not really going to get interviews. So some of those guys do that. And, it is kind of rotational as well, because you usually don't have guys who go multiple years to the media days for their given conference. Like Shaquille Quarterman, he went to or for Miami last year as the defensive player, and he's a guy who should be first team All ACC and challenging for an All American nomination or placement at the end of the year, because he's very, very talented and he's the best linebacker that we have and one of the best linebackers in America looking forward. But he was the guy who went and spoke at Media Days last year. So instead of running him back again and saying, hey, we're going to try to push him, like we've already had him out there. Everybody knows about him. Yeah, let's go Jaquan Johnson, who has not necessarily been that person who's spoken in the media like that. And Amon Richards, if everything goes to expectations, then this is probably going to be his last year in Miami. So yeah, let's put him out there and everything, because again, he is one of the most talented wide receivers in America, and things like that. So yeah, it is good to kind of look at those and figure those out. So I think that we've gotten to the bottom of that.
We appreciate everyone on the live chat. A number of people have commented, not necessarily anything unique there. So if you want anything specific to be passed on to Cam by way of question or comment, certainly I will be monitoring the live chat. And now I'm going to be going to the All ACC preseason team for 2018 to figure out who Cam's talking about that was in place there instead of Jaquan Johnson. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty obvious to me.
From last year. Derwin James.
Okay. Oh, from last year. Okay, I thought this was the preseason for 20.
No. I mean, Jaquan Johnson should have been first team All American,
okay,
team All ACC from the 2017 season. They gave that to Derwin James instead because Derwin James had the name and the build and the whole hoopla. But if you look at the statistics, if you look at the play on the field from last year at safety, oh well, he did so many things. Well, then if And I get, and I'm only going to talk about Florida State for this little bit, but big part of pushing Derwin James to that position was, he rushed sometimes. He played outside back, or he played nickel, and he played, then put him in a utility spot. That's fine. Like, that's cool. Like, you have one of those, so then utilize that. But saying that, at safety, but the whole process to put him in first team All-American and first team All-ACC was the multifaceted nature of his play. Put him in defensive utility, put Jaquan Johnson at safety because he played exclusively safety and played it better than Derwin James or anybody else in the conference or in America the time that he did it. So that's, what that was. But anyway, moving on.
All right, do us a few favors here. Go to State of the U after the conversation here and check out all the pre-season breakdown of the positions. I know all that's there. A lot of other good stuff for you to check out to get you set for 2018 with the Canes. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel where we talk to the nation and including Miami here with Cam. I'm not going to expect Cam to be able to nail you down because you're not going to be able to do research on this. You're just going to have to be able to kind of scan the conference, but I'm ranking the coaches in every conference. Okay. And I left the ACC for last, and I just produced that video last night. And every other conference, sure, I would have to do quite a bit of research and look around and look at legacy and look at records and then try to project. And then you got to take facilities and recruiting footprint and all that into, because some people have advantages and disadvantages and all of that. And I try to make it bottom line, who would I take right now? So if this was 10 years ago, even though Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno are two of the greatest of all time, they weren't on top of their game at that point. I wouldn't rate them number one. They'd be fifth or sixth in their conference, whatever. Okay. The ACC was by far the most difficult conference to rate after the obvious number one. The rest of them was it was really difficult because I don't see a bad, like I can go to every other conference and say, that guy's really screwing up. That guy is just not meeting expectations. He's on the hot seat. I had a difficult time in the ACC, and I did finally, this is kind of chalk, but I finished with Mark Richt at number 2 in the ACC. I didn't think I was going to arrive at that place, but I did.
Yeah, and I think that that's fair, honestly, and to the point of, coaching being better in the conference. If you look back in the last couple of years, pretty much all the hires have been strong hires. When you got Mark Richt coming in, you had Justin Fuente coming up from Memphis. You had, even Bronco Mendenhall going over to Virginia. You have, who else? Clausen at Wake Forest. Even he was the year before that. But still, Bobby Petrino coming back off of his shenanigans to Louisville, which is a great fit for him. just across the conference, really, all of these hires have been solid. So it's not really, like the previous round of hires had some bad fits in there, Al Golden included. And that was, borne out to be true fairly quickly. But yeah, this round of hires has really upped the level of coaching where I could see it being maybe a little difficult to really differentiate, maybe that middle tier, that 4 to 9, kind of 4 to 10 on the coaching list. I would put Dabo 1, just because, Clemson's rolling. And even if, you want to say, well, he's more of a recruiter, CEO, rah kind of guy, and he lets his coordinators do the heavy lifting on the X's and O's. Even if you say that, and I don't necessarily agree with that, the proof is in the pudding, and that stuff works. So, yeah, you got to have Dabo 1, obviously, there. Clemson's the class of the ACC right now, and that's because of coaching and player development and their players, obviously. I would say Mark Richt would be at 2. Miami has the most talented roster in the Coastal by far, finally playing to that level over the last couple of years with 9 wins and a bowl win in 16 and 10 wins last year. So, yeah, I would put Miami or Mark Richt as the coach at 2. Behind him, I would probably go – I might go Fuente. Larry Fedora is decent, but they were terrible last year. David Cutcliffe at Duke is pretty good, so he's in that middle tier somewhere. Willie Taggart, I would kind of leave off of the list and put him as incomplete, just because I've seen him at other places, and he's, got this poor overall record. But in his defense, he did take a very bad Western Kentucky program for a couple of years, and it's going to take a couple of years of losing to turn that culture around and get, things going. Same thing when he went to USF. And then he went to Oregon and everything, lost his number 1 quarterback, who he probably went there to work with, because when you have a quarterback of Justin Herbert's talent and skill, then you can build that offense around him immediately and then, make that go. So, we've seen him do some things, but have not seen him at Florida State do those things. So I would leave him off. Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech, it kind of comes down to the coordinators there, really, and the coordinator really on defense, because Ted Roof and his cushy system of defense, which I loved because we always beat them, is now gone. They got a new guy in there who's transitioning to a 3-4, and he wants to attack more with defense. But, with Paul Johnson, like I always say with Georgia Tech, it's the scheme, not the players there. So if you're going to bring in recruiting, well, recruiting is going to be average to maybe a little bit below, because academic standards at Georgia Tech, but you're in Atlanta, so you have that talent base around to pull from. But obviously you play an unsexy kind of football with that triple option veer thing or whatever. And there's probably a couple other guys maybe on that coaching list. But, I think that the clear 1 and 2 have to be Dabo 1, Mark Richt 2, and then you can fight it out from 3 to 10. And I really won't fight you. If you want to have Dave Clawson higher than a lot of other guys, I'm not going to fight you. If you want to have Bobby Petrino at a solid 3rd right now, I'm not going to fight you, So, it's really just on what the point of conversation is going to be behind Dabo and Rick to order those other guys. But, yeah, from top to bottom, the coaching in the ACC has gotten a lot better. And I think that that's been a good thing, obviously, for the quality of football.
I put Clawson at 4th. Here's a stat for you. The last Wake Forest head coach that had a winning record for his stay at Wake Forest was in the 1940s. The guy's nickname was P-Head. You had to go back to the 1940s. P-Head Walker.
Yeah.
And Dave Clawson takes over a program that was awful, and it was awful for his first 2 years. And if you remember, I'm sure you do, you guys play them time to time. Like the offense was like one of the 5 or 10 worst in the country. And by last year, he goes from 3 wins to 7-6, 8-5, and they've got an explosive offense. And it's tough to recruit there. And
but you got Greg Dortch coming in there, and he was, he could have been freshman of the year in the ACC had he not torn his knee up. They come within third or fourth down conversion away from beating Florida State last year. Even in a down year, I don't care. This is Wake Forest we're talking about. That's still monumental, and things like that. So yeah, you could have clause in it and I'm not gonna really fight you about it. But I mean, like I'm saying, it comes to the point now where the quality is so high that apart from Dabo at 1 and Rick at 2, there's a lot of dudes in this conversation. If you got 13 teams, 14 teams in the conference. So that top 7, the top half of the coaching list, it's going to be tough for those other 5 guys because there's 8 or 9 coaches that could be, in the top half of the list. I mean, but it's a good thing because, you want to have good competition and it ups the level for everybody. And if somebody falls below the standard, then they're going to, get fired. So if you look at, the SEC, which is, from top to bottom, from the top, at least, it is the best conference. But you have the bottom teams who are always trying to get up and make the conference as a whole more competitive. Those guys at the bottom, those coaches, if they're not able to do that, they're getting fired by their teams and they're looking for somebody to bring the quality up. And in the ACC, you've seen a lot of these hires really be good fits for their programs. And, obviously everybody has different definitions of success. So David Cutcliffe at Duke, versus Nick Saban at Alabama, their definition of success is going to be different. But you have Duke, which was one of the worst teams in captivity for a time. And now they're, fairly consistently bowl eligible. You're talking 6, 7, 8 wins on a pretty much every year basis. For Duke football, if you're of age, I'm in my 30s, but if you're like around my age, maybe a little bit younger, Duke was go back and look at that Devin Hester punt return from 2005 against Duke. Go back and look at it, or whatever year, 04, 05, when he goes and he just runs all around and back and forth and cuts through everybody, because it was a video game then. It was just like, okay, I'm just going to kind of Tecmo Bowl it, go sideline to sideline and then figure it out, because Duke was terrible. But even getting them to be mediocre is a big win for them. So, yeah, having better coaches is a good thing for the conference, and we're seeing that. And I'm glad, that Miami upgraded our coaching situation, and hopefully will continue to improve the on-field situation as well.
The thing, the 3 points I would make about Cutcliffe and looking at it is, number one, and I wasn't, again, going legacy, unless the legacy was still holding, meaning this guy is the same guy coming to the forefront of the program. This is still the same guy we had 10 years ago, unlike a Bobby Bowden, he's a shell of himself 10 years later. But if Cutcliffe is the same guy he was 10 years ago, so I even looked at Ole Miss, he had a really good coach before him and a really good coach after him, meaning Tommy Tuberville and Houston Nutt at Ole Miss, and he did much better than both of them at Ole Miss. Then he goes to Duke, and he's been there for 10 years now, and his first 5 years were awful. It took him a long time, but his next 5 years have been significantly better than his first 5 years. And the guy's just well respected. You listen to coaches and they know what they're doing and they know who they like and who's doing a good job. And they also always say David Cutcliffe. Mark Richt, this is my defense of Mark Richt, because people can automatically say, well, he's had all this talent first at Georgia, now at Miami, he should win big. And the Kirby Smart job that he did last year throws some shade at Mark Richt. For 15 years at Georgia, Mark Richt went 83-37 in the SEC. When the SEC was the SEC, when it was brutally tough, he went 83-37 in that conference. He finished ranked every year but one. He finished in the top 10 like 9 times out of 15 years. I know he didn't complete it and get to the promised land, but I don't know that the coaches can go out there and make tackles and throw passes. And basically in 2012, he coached his team to the brink of, that close. And the other thing about Mark Richt, again, there's an assumption with Georgia and Georgia talent, and much of it's true. But the 3 coaches prior to him, Jim Donnan, Ray Goff, and even though Vince Dooley's a legend at Georgia because of the national title, his last 8 years were a lot of 8-4s, 7-5s, and the other 2 coaches. So Richt took that, what was a 7 or 8 win program for 25 years, and boom, all of a sudden they're going 10-2 every year. And so I thought that was pretty substantial. Plus, I was going back and forth between Petrino and Richt between 2 and 3, because Bobby Petrino's done some great things on the field. But if you're going to place your program in the hands of someone and know that it's not going to come off the rails, that he's not going to do something idiotic to embarrass your program, that gave the lean to Mark Richt in a very heavy way. Those were polar opposites I was comparing there in terms of Petrino and Richt.
Yeah. Obviously you have that kind of a thing, but I mean, I don't have to really sit here and go over Mark Richt's resume because everybody knows that and everything. And I think one of our writers who just on the website on State of the U today talked about, Miami's going to be basically a consistent 10-win team from here on out with Mark Richt as the head coach. Now, obviously, I know that Georgia fans and college football fans from around the world are going to say, hey, 10 wins is good. Last year, Miami won 10 games. Do you really feel great about that season at 10-3? I feel good. I feel better than I do, at 4-8 or anything, but I don't feel great, obviously, with the way that it ended. And everybody's going to say, he never won the big game or this, that, and the third. Okay. I mean, that's a fact. Like even, that SEC championship game with Aaron Murray when the ball got tipped and whoever the receiver was, I think it was Massaquoi, caught it at like the 2-yard line and they didn't have any timeouts left. Like, you're an incompletion in another play, or if that doesn't get tipped and the receiver who was further down the field was in the end zone open, if that play goes differently, now we're talking about Mark Richt differently, even if it's, well, he got there once, it goes from being 0 wins to 1. And that's a big step. If you look back in the NBA, everybody was talking about LeBron, like he was never able to get off of 0 championships. Came to Miami, whatever, got off that schneid, lost the first year in Miami, if you don't remember that, to Dallas in the 2011 finals, came back the next year, finally took that 0, turned it into a 1. That's a big step. But yeah, I think that's really where Miami finds itself needing to take that next step again. And Mark Richt also. So I think that both coach and program are in the same spot. And it'll be interesting to see the coach try to lead the program to that next step because, that's where he's been in his career and that's where we are as a program. Now, obviously, Mark Richt has championship pedigree caliber because, he was on some of those staffs in at Florida State from the past. They didn't win a championship when he was there. No, he had a Heisman Trophy winner, but they didn't win a championship with him on staff there. But, he's a high-level coach. But he personally, as a coach, if you want to put it on him, and Miami Hurricanes program, which, obviously went through a pretty bad time for a decade, needs to get back to a step above where we are. And, it's going to be a challenge to get there, but it's a challenge that I think we're up for and, are excited about because, we everything can't be easy all the time. I mean, even the 2001 Hurricanes team almost lost to Boston College and found a way to gut that one out. So, there's a tough task ahead of us, but we'll see if we can do it.
Mark Richt, not to correct you, but I will because I think you want me to, actually won 2 championships at Florida State as an assistant. He was there as the quarterbacks coach in '93 when they won the whole thing, and Charlie Ward. They won the national championship that year. And then in 1999, when they beat Virginia Tech and Michael Vick, he was there as the offensive coordinator.
Oh, well, 93 flashed in my head at first, but I didn't remember if he was there or not. But that would have been around the same time as Charlie Ward won that Heisman. So, and Casey Weldon was the runner-up a couple of years later. So, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so he was the play caller. He was, the offensive coordinator on those teams both years then. So, add that to the resume then.
Right, Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U with a fine resume of his own. So please check out he and the rest of the staff there at the State of the U. It's some fine stuff, and Cam gets requested more than anybody. I hate to tell him that sometimes, but I have to sometimes let him know because I know he's busy, but I put the request out there every few weeks and sometimes have to let him know, nudge, nudge. People are asking for you. They want some good Miami football talk, and Cam delivers. Even when there's not a whole lot going on, this would be the ultimate dead spot. But we've got media days coming up in just a few days. And sure, we can't talk about football. We're going to be talking about what other people are talking about is basically what's going to happen. But it's still, maybe somebody will say something. I wouldn't expect that to come from Mark Richt, but he'll be by the book and he'll be fine and knows what he's doing up there. But somebody's going to say something that'll be that somebody will run with that we can have some fun with. But hopefully we can have Cam back to talk some Miami football. A lot of trash talking on the chat. Don't see a whole lot there. People asking about the offense. I don't know that you can really add anything that you haven't said a dozen times since they left the field against Wisconsin about this offense.
I mean, the offense is loaded. We have, 4 or 5 running backs, who are good. Travis Homer is going to be your starter. DJ Dallas is a slash player. He's based at running back, but he can play wildcat quarterback. He can play slot. He can play outside. He can kick return, punt return. Lorenzo Lingard, 5-star recruit who ran 4.27 in the 40 in the spring testing, athletic testing. Robert Burns, hopefully, maybe if he's healthy for the first time in 3 or 4 seasons, spanning high school into college. He's very talented. He's 5'10", 225 pounds, and he can move surprisingly quick for a guy that size. So if he's healthy, that's an addition. Trayon Gray at running back. I can go down the list of wide receivers from Amon Richards to Lawrence Cager to Jeff Thomas to Mike Harley to Mark Pope to Brian Hightower to Evidence Njoku to Marquez Izar in tight ends, Brevin Jordan coming as a freshman, Will Mallory is a freshman, Michael Irvin Jr. has his father's name, so there's that. But there's skill talent everywhere. So, and Miami's the key is going to be able to get those guys the ball, hopefully in space, because in space then they can make some things work. But even in tight spaces, we have guys who can score on any play. The offensive line needs to be better. Hopefully the reshuffling will help with that. Taking Tyree St. Louis to left tackle, but then moving Navon Donaldson to right tackle and filling in the inside from there. Got a transfer up front from Tennessee, Denzel Bulware, who's officially in school for summer B session now. So he's going to try to play his way into one of the guard spots. So it's really going to come down to, consistency on the offensive line. The offensive line cannot be a sieve. It cannot be terrible. Even if it's average and passable, then Miami should be able to put up numbers. And also, it falls on the quarterback position. Malik Rozier is going to start this year. I don't know if he's going to continue to start all year, but it's up to him getting people the ball, making the right reads in the pass game and in the run game. So between the offensive line and the quarterback, that's going to determine the success that Miami has on offense. And I really think that it comes down to execution more than play calling and things like that. And as the year went on last year, you saw Mark Richt start to open up the offense, and he went to some new and different things, and it was able to become dynamic. So having seen some of those things, I'm excited to see where we ended last year. You can think about the last win if you want, but that last win was from an offensive standpoint. I want to start there and then build from there from a schematic standpoint. But if the offensive line is not able to block well and give you the time to do what it is that you want to do offensively, then you're going to have to scale it back. If the quarterback is not able to hit throws, and the easy throws, the slants, the square ends, the stop routes, the little things that are, those are completion percentage builders. If he's not able to hit those and keep the chains moving, then you can't build to the second, to the bubble screen and go, because you're not completing bubble screens. So it really comes down to executing on offense. And I'm hopeful. But, I need to see the evidence of that. But I really am hopeful that this offense is going to continue to be a top 25 yards per play offense with guys all over the field who can score from anywhere.
So, Cam, based on what you know of the media that covers Miami and where you get your information during August camp, and number 2, the coaching staff, and that's controlled first and foremost by Mark Richt, and you have less experience at that, are you going to be able to get what you feel is an accurate picture of that quarterback battle and what's really happening?
No, absolutely not, because they're not going to say it. Or it's good, you remember a couple of years ago when a report in the NBA Finals came out that Steve Kerr was going to switch the lineup and start Andre Iguodala, and they asked him about it in the shoot around in the morning, and he said, no, why would I do that? Won all these games, and then he went out and did exactly that thing. And after the game, he said, I had to lie to you guys. I'm not going to give away the strategy, at 2 o'clock for a 9 o'clock tip-off, even though it was right. I told you no, because that gave my team the best chance to win by not revealing that strategy. That's exactly what's going to happen. And that's going to happen also to tie that up with Miami's quarterback position. If you look into the spring, Mark Richt said it was an open competition. I don't like calling people liars, but if you look at what happened through the spring, that was not an open competition. That was Malik Rozier was one, and then some other guys got some reps with the ones and things like that. But Malik Rozier was one all the way through. And that's going to continue to be the case. I don't think that we're going to see the quarterbacks throw much. We're not going to, from the video that gets released or even from the beat writers who are there for the viewing period of practice, which I think is like 15 or 20 minutes a day, you're not going to really hear many things. I don't think that the quarterbacks are going to be made available for comment or interview that often during fall camp. And I think that Mark Richt is just going to maintain that line that he's been saying, which is we're looking for consistency. Every position is open for every player, and we'll see what shakes. And I mean, it's going to be status quo. It's going to be Malik Rozier starting. He's a fifth-year senior. Every time that Mark Richt talks, he talks about Rozier knows the offense. He gets into the right, spots. If you're giving an audible, if you're, changing protections, all the operational kind of things. And he should be the best at that because he's been here the longest. This is his third year with Mark Richt, as the coach in that system. So you should know it. So every time that Mark Richt has previously spoken about it, that's what it has been, talking about the operational things. And that's fine. But then just say that. Just say, look, Malik is the starter, period. And that's it. Because honestly, he is. That's what he's going to be. We all know that I am not personally the biggest Malik Rozier fan. I am very critical of him. I would like him to be better. I would like to see the elite level performance from him on a consistent basis. I just do not believe that is the kind of player that he is. Even with getting Miami into the right reads, into the right protections, into the right looks, does that really matter if you're still throwing ground balls? Does that really matter if you're missing wide open guys? Even if you look at that touchdown that he threw in the Syracuse game, I want to say to Jeff Thomas up that left sideline, and he was butt naked wide open by 15 yards. And he's got 4.4, 4.3, he's super fast and was gone. Afterburners, everything. And had to slow down to catch the ball and then try to speed up again and dive to barely get there before getting tackled because the ball was underthrown. So that was a touchdown pass and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it wasn't like pitch perfect, over the shoulder, in stride. I'm running up the tunnel Thrill Hill in 91 against Texas. That isn't it. And I would love to see that. But I think that there's a vast difference between the current level of accuracy or the previous demonstrated level of accuracy and the necessary level of accuracy from Malik Rozier to make that happen. But getting back to your original point, there's going to be very little talk. It's going to take, it's going to take people really digging with their sources to find out what's going on in an honest way with the quarterback competition, because I just don't, from what I've seen from Mark Richt these last 2 years regarding Malik Rozier and the quarterback position, I do not believe that there's going to be transparency. I do not believe that there's going to be a forthright nature of communication regarding that position. And if that changes, cool. But from what we've seen, I just don't. I think there's going to be, again, continuing that same status quo of generalities and kind of blanket statements without really actually digging into what's going on.
Cam, the comment that you made in describing Malik Rozier's ugly completions that has stuck with me ever since, because as soon as you said it, I thought of about 12 times that I saw it, and Braxton Berrios seemed to be the guy that was making most of these catches on the slant or the seam route that was completed, but it should have been big play completion, throw it where he can run with it and make a move, but it was a sliding, diving behind me. I got to try to secure the football.
And, there's something to be said for those plays as well, because a completion for 8 is better than an incompletion or an interception. So I'm not fully discounting those. But like you're saying, if there's green grass, throw it to him where his momentum is going and let him work. One of the best plays last year was in the North Carolina game. It was a little crossing route to DJ Dallas. Just a dump off over the middle. They brought pressure from this side, replace it, boom, hit him. And that was the really quick shifty move that DJ Dallas put on the linebacker in the middle of the field and ran for like 45 yards before getting tackled. probably should have scored if he would have veered the other way. But that was one of the best plays. It was a hot read against the blitz, accurate to give him the ball, and then let him work. So if DJ Dallas would have gotten tackled by that first defender after 6 yards, that would have been a positive play. But instead, he gets the ball on time, in space, makes a guy miss, which you want your skill guys to do, and then runs for 50-something yards. That now takes – and you get all 50-something of those yards on your passing stats, Malik. So a short pass right there, nice and easy. Now all of a sudden it changes the complexion of the game. But if you're not able to do that, then, okay, it's only a 6-yard gain instead of 50-something. It's a slant where, okay, I have to dive or I have to stop or I've got to contort my body to make these things happen. Just in a general sense, accuracy for Malik Rozier needs to be better to then unlock all these hidden yards that could be there. And if you're, 54% for the year, even with let's call it a 10% difference would be up to 59. So if we call it a 5% difference, that'd be 57%, give or take. So an additional 3% completions. How many yards could that be if you already had 31-20? You know what I mean? Another 3%, and you had 200 completions. So you're talking, okay, like another 8 completions, maybe. Well, actually on 400 something. So you're talking about maybe another 13 completions. 13 completions at 7.5 yards per attempt? Or 13 completions times, what was it? I think he had like 14 yards of completion. Bro, that's another 300 yards. And that's not even taking into account big plays. That's taking into account average plays. You know what I'm saying? Now that takes Malik Rozier from 3,100 yards to 3,500 yards on the season. How many of those could now be touchdowns? Those little differences could be that. And now if you're talking about getting up to 60% completions, so another 6% on top of what you've already demonstrated, now you're talking almost another 800-900 yards. How many? The numbers, and I'm a nerd, so I'm in math mode right now. But just looking at the numbers on math, hold on, I'm going to open up a tab. I'm going to go to college football stats. I'm going to go down to Miami. And I'm going to go back. Come on, computer. Thank you. I'm going to go to passing so I have the accurate numbers. You're talking 7.5 yards per attempt. So every time he throws the ball, he's going to get 7.5. If we got 3120 divided by 224, that's 14 yards of completion. Right? So, it's just the numbers could really, really be impressive for him and for the receivers and for the offense overall if minor things were to change. You know what I mean? If you have, if I go back, and I know I'm sitting here and doing math, but I'm a nerd, like I said.
You're good.
I'm doing some more math.
I love this.
If you're looking at 415 completions times 60%, that's 249 completions. So that would be another 25 completions from what he had based upon the number of attempts he had last year. If you multiply that by 14 yards, that's 3,500 yards. That was based upon the yards per completion times the potential number of completions. And that's, again, taking the average, not even accounting for these other things that could be improved.
And that's not outrageous, because I think some people get on here sometimes, and not just with Malik Rozier, but with other quarterbacks at the end of a game and say, he missed this throw, he missed that throw. Well, every quarterback, especially at the collegiate level, misses throws. So they're not going to make every throw. But I think, to further your point, place these throws in the right games. And of course we can't do that, but when was he making his worst throws against the best opponents, against maybe the 3 best or the 2 best opponents, obviously at the end, but the pit game of the season that would have made the difference twice in those games?
I think that there were some to be desired in every game. Sure. But and I'm not, people are going to miss throws. Yeah. But not maybe with the consistent nature. But if you're talking about getting up to 3,500 yards, now you're going from Malik Rozier being down in the 30. So he was 30th overall in total passing yards last year. You're going to go from that to top 20, and I mean, again, and if some of and that's, again, just going on 60% completions with the average yards per completion that he demonstrated last year, not even taking into account if there were any additional big plays, if there was improved accuracy where there's run after the catch of some of the plays previous, the numbers could really be eye-popping if the play is to the level to necessitate or to precipitate that. And again, 60% completions it's not even really that high, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's not like I said, we're going to go from 54% to 80% completions or something like that. But I mean, if you're looking at, you have guys last year who, I mean, how many quarterbacks in the country had 60% completions? 53, and numbers 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58 on completions were at 59.9, 59.8, 59.7, and 59.6. So you had 57, 58 guys who were around 60% completions. That's half of your 128 right there, almost. I mean, it's a little under, but I mean, you're talking about 45% of starting quarterbacks had 60% completions. That's not even expecting that much out of Malik. But if he were to get that leap from 54% to 60%, it would be transformational for this team. And I mean, I can hope for that. I would love that. I need to see it. And I don't know necessarily that we're going to see it through this through fall camp. I don't know that Mark Richt is really going to talk about it too much. I don't think that John Richt, when he gets he's the quarterback coach, Mark Richt's son, if you didn't know that. I don't think that he's really going to, belabor the point too much. I don't think that we're really going to get too many numbers of completions and things from, the scrimmages, or, I mean, you might get it from the scrimmages, but from everyday practice. But man, I mean, even a minor uptick in potential completion percentage could really, and I mean really, really be huge. So, I mean, quarterback is the most important position on the football field. And I know that there are 11 people on either side of the ball at all times in, offense, defense, and special teams, but the singular position is quarterback. And Miami just simply needs to see progression from Malik Rozier from last year to this. And, the highs were high, but the lows were very low. I mean, and if we can eliminate some of the lows and make those even average, if we get rid of some of the bad ground balls or incompletions, and even make those the 7.5 yard catch where the guy doesn't have room to run but just falls down, the offense can be so much more. And I hope to see that. I really, really honestly do. But I mean, hopefully Malik has done some work, because you can't just hope for it, or blindly think, okay, well, I'm a fifth-year senior now, so I'm going to do better. Like, have you put in work to do better? Have you sat and you have done accuracy drills? Are you really working on your footwork? Are you trying to get rid of that long, loopy baseball outfielder throw that you lean on sometimes? There's a lot of different components there. But, I mean, through all of that talk and everything else, the season's really going to come down to Malik Rozier, because he's going to be the starting quarterback. And if it comes to pass that he's not the starting quarterback, then either one, we have a season-ending injury to Malik Rozier, which I am knocking on my wooden table, do not want to have. But obviously we saw that even with our rival Florida State in the opener last year. They lost their starting quarterback and then things fell apart. If Malik Rozier is not the starting quarterback, either his performance is abjectly terrible for a couple games, or he's injured. So short of that, he's going to be the guy. So now we need to look at ways to make his job easier and to make him better to be able to operate that job. And, again, from the numbers of demonstrated performance, there are things to like with Malik. There's just also things to not like, and hopefully those get mitigated and the things to like get highlighted and improved.
So we got all sorts of people making comments on the chat. I've got 3 points to make off of your points, because I thought that was great. I thought it was fascinating. So from a numbers standpoint, I'm right there with you. And you're not even talking necessarily, even though it results in sheer numbers. Of course, we do not want a Miami quarterback, if you're a Miami fan, to lead the nation in passing yardage. You don't need that. That happens in the Mountain West. They throw for 4,500 yards, and in other conferences. You don't need that, but you need efficiency and you need explosive plays. Against any defense, it's difficult to go 12 plays, 83 yards, and the like. Against a really good defense, like you saw a number of times last year, and we'll see 4 or 5 times this year, if you can wipe out a 57-yard completion and not have to drive those 57 yards at 8 and 12 and 3 chunks at a time and be perfect and have to convert a 3rd and 5, then a 3rd and 7, then a 3rd and 2, but you get, boom, 57. That makes the game so much, and you got the guys to do it on the outside. It makes it so much easier. Number 2, let's not confuse some of these passes that we're criticizing Malik Rozier and compare them to other quarterbacks who make throws that at first glance, when they're live, look like bad throws, but they're elite quarterbacks that are on the same page with their wide receiver. So they're either protecting the receiver or out of the frame of the shot on television, there are defenders lurking, and the quarterback and the receiver know, I got to throw this back shoulder, or I see that window, and I'm going over here with the ball, and it's not the perfect boom like you throw in the backyard. Let's not make that mistake, because the elite quarterbacks can do that, and that's not what we're criticizing with Malik Rozier. And thirdly, this will be fascinating. Okay, Miami's better than everyone on the schedule. LSU, Florida State have similar talent, but it remains to be seen whether they're going to be as good as Miami. They're better than everyone else. Virginia Tech would be the second best talent in the division. So if Miami is the expected, Cam, 7-1, 8-0, whatever they are at that point in the season, but Malik Rozier is not playing well, is Mark Richt selecting him out of the gate thinking, okay, he has all this experience and we should win all these games? Not that they're not going to have some tough games, because they will. Even the likes of a Duke or a Georgia Tech may jump up and make it a difficult game like they did last year in Miami. But do we give him 7 or 8 weeks and see if he gets much better so we're ready for that championship game? Can't assume that, but that's where they should be headed. Or do I pull the plug on this guy after 8 or 9 weeks because I see 2 kids that are throwing the football around every day in practice that can make that difference? And even though the record looks good, we better be ready for this championship game.
I do not foresee that happening. And I get that there was the whole redshirt rule last year, that if the new redshirt rule, which if you missed it, now players can play up to 4 games, any 4 games, and still maintain their redshirt season. Had that been in place last year, then N'Kosi Perry would have played in October, November last year. I guarantee you that, which is when Miami actually was faced with this very question of, the record is good, but the result has been good, but the process has not been smooth, per se. You have these couple of tough games that probably should not have been, and Malik Rozier didn't necessarily play his greatest and things like that. I mean, yeah, last year, Evan Sheriffs was not as talented as, Jaron Williams and N'Kosi Perry are. And obviously you had the red shirt issue with N'Kosi Perry, where you didn't want to burn his red shirt for 1 game or 2 games or something, and you really didn't know what you had there. So all that being said, I don't think that Mark Richt would change the interaction this year. I don't think that, again, unless Malik Rozier is playing abjectly terrible, like even if it's some highs and some lows and passable like it was last year, I don't think that he's going to go away from him. And yeah, you're going to look at, people are always going to parrot, the win-loss record as quarterback wins, but wins are not a quarterback stat, but people are going to say that and things. But yeah, if Miami is 7-1 or 8-0, then you're going to be talking about, oh, well, Malik Rozier is 21-3 as a starter and blah, 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 blah. But it just, if the offense is not running at peak optimization for what it could be, that's one thing. But again, unless he gets injured and is out for a time, a time could be the rest of the year from when the injury happens. But again, I don't hope that happens. or he's like, Kirby Freeman 1 for 15 in a game, bad. Malik Rozier is going to be the guy. So, I mean, regardless of the optics, regardless of what we want, and I mean, last year we were loud about it, saying, we need to upgrade at the position, and I wrote that, and I wrote that in the offseason, said for Miami to get to where they want to be, really contending for championships and things, then we need to move on from Malik Rozier at quarterback. That probably is not going to happen this year. So then, in the absence of moving on from Malik, which I don't think that Mark Richt is going to do, I do not foresee a time when this year, with Malik healthy, we turn 100% to Kosi or Jaren. I don't see that happening. So then that just means that you got to work to get, Malik Rozier better. And hopefully, when the time comes in 2019 for one of these kids to take over, Jaren Williams or N'Kosi Perry, now they're able to make that leap. But for this year, regardless, I mean, especially if we're winning games, I don't see it. I don't see Mark Richt going away from Malik Rozier. I really don't, unless he's injured or, I mean, just playing like, the worst quarterback in FBS. I don't see it. So, just get used to it, and then hopefully we'll see some progression there.
Cam Underwood, State of the U on the line with us here at Mark Rogers TV. We are the voice of college football. That means I've got a voice, you've got a voice, and of course we bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, and they certainly have a voice. Cam's got some pipes, so it's even amplified more with him.
Appreciate it.
Have you seen anything out of John Richt that makes you believe that he is not qualified for this job?
Woo! I will not say that he's not qualified for the job. I mean, he played, in college. He's obviously been on staff with his dad, here for a couple of years, and he coached in another place as well. I think that we're going to see that an upgrade can be made at that position. And that's the thing that I've thought for a while, and I was going to really dig into it on the website on State of the U with a piece about it, but, kind of balancing that line of being uberly critical and then, maintaining a relationship with Miami. But, I mean, to this point, it makes sense for Mark Richt to bring in his son, John, to be the quarterback coach, because if you need somebody to know your system and to teach it, it makes sense that somebody who knows it would be the guy. And John Richt, throughout his playing and coaching career, has seen, throughout his life, he's seen his dad coach. He knows the philosophy that his dad has about quarterbacks. So, and John played quarterback, and things like that. So now, if Mark Richt, is working with, the other duties as head coach, but wants to be 100% sure that his system of quarterback play is being taught the way that he would teach it, in the manner and pacing and all those kind of things, then yeah, bringing in the other next best expert, your son, would be the great, the wise move to do. And I think that, we've gotten a lot out of that. Outside of that, I wrote the coaching profile about John Richt this offseason, and said that, he's a solid coach, obviously, because he knows the system, and he's done fairly well in recruiting, i.e. getting every single recruit that he's gone after at the position so far. And I think that might be about to fall apart. And on that, if the recruiting is not where it needs to be, then I start to have questions about the rest of the house of cards, as it were. Michael Johnson Jr. is Miami's only targeted quarterback right now in this class. And if he commits to Penn State on August the 1st, which is his announced decision day, which it seems like he is going to do now, then that puts Miami in a very difficult situation at quarterback, on the roster, and in recruiting in general. I'm actually going to write about that on the website soon, so I'm not going to delve too deep on this now. But if Michael Johnson Jr. goes elsewhere, then I start to have questions about the entire interaction. Could there be upgrades at the quarterback position or the quarterback coaching position? I believe so. And it is what it is. But I'm not going to say that he's unqualified for the job. I will not say that. I will, however, say that I'm starting to now have questions about how good he is at this job, and about how John Richt struggling at times in this job, and especially in recruiting, because you have to get the guys on the team to have the talent to perform, how that could have a negative impact on the program going forward at the game's most important position, which is daunting if you think about it. And like I said, I've been thinking and workshopping a piece about this for the website soon, so I'm going to kind of truncate my answer there. But and hopefully you'll come to State of the U and see what I say about that in full later. But that's kind of where my brain is about the quarterback position and quarterback coaching, I should say.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, as he mentions, go to State of the U, obviously, for Miami football coverage entering 2018, and we kick off the season of sorts in terms of the talking season leading into fall camp this Wednesday and Thursday in Charlotte at the ACC Media Days. Our guy, Shad Jamal, says that Malik and John Richt should be on the bus equipment staff is where he would like to see those guys.
I mean, okay.
So we have another question we've got all sorts of questions and comments. They're just flying by. But Brad Breckenridge would like to know how you see the running backs carries being distributed.
Running back carries are going to be Travis Homer with the most, followed by probably DJ Dallas. And then I would foresee Lorenzo Lingard stepping up into that number 3 role. I don't have numbers just because, well, you know what? I have college football stats open. So let's go over and let's look at rushing. So last year you had about 163 and 56. That's a little over 200 carries between Mark Walton, who ended up getting injured, and Travis Homer. You add in DJ Dallas, that brings it to almost 300-ish, or just short of. So that's 97 plus 163 makes 100, so like 260-ish. So out of those 260, if you're having a similar number of rushes, I would say Travis Homer's still going to get about 165, 170. And then splitting the rest of them between Dallas, he'll probably go up from 41 to maybe into the 70s or 80s, so doubling his running. And then Lingard being in the 30 to 40 something range, which is, again, what DJ Dallas did last year. He had 41 carries. And I think that number could go up slightly because Malik Rozier had 131 carries last year. And that is more carries from the quarterback position in one season than Miami had from the last 4 seasons of quarterback play combined. So if Malik were to go from, say, 131 to 115, that brings up another 16 carries to be split up. So somewhere along those lines is what I see. And then, maybe Robert Burns getting some of those as well.
Somebody on here lost track of the comment. Thinks Lingard jumps in there at number 2 and DJ Dallas gets more touches out of the backfield as a receiver.
I don't see that happening because I believe when you see DJ Dallas run, he's natural with it. I said it as a recruit because he played, Wildcat. He played quarterback in high school, but, he did the whole Wildcat thing. He threw the ball some, and he played running back, he played receiver. He did all those kind of things. So, I mean, but when he's just running the ball, you give him the ball and let him run, that is his athletic gift. I mean, he is shifty, he's fast, he's quick, he's all those things. So I think that DJ Dallas is going to be your number 2 this year. And he's going to be an offensive weapon where you can put him in so many different places. So, yeah, maybe his carries could be a little bit lower and Lingard's could be a little bit higher than what I previously stated. But I think that, if right now Travis Homer were to get injured, which, again, I do not want to happen, but if he were, then I think DJ Dallas will be your starting running back, not Lorenzo Lingard, at least for the first half of the year. I think that Lorenzo Lingard is great. He's a 5-star player. I love having him on the team, but we have other talented players as well. So I'm not necessarily going to say that, DJ is going to get jumped on the running back rotation right now. But in terms of carries, the number might be closer between DJ Dallas and Lorenzo Lingard just for the fact that, DJ Dallas can be used in so many different ways that his carry numbers might be not as high, but his impact and his usage rate on the offense could still be up there.
And is that enough depth to give Cameron Davis a red shirt?
Yeah, I don't see Cam Davis playing this year, honestly. He was the last enrollee from the 2018 recruiting class, between 11 guys coming in early in January and the other 20 or another 12, I want to say, coming in for summer session A in May. The only person who didn't make it in for summer session A was Cam Davis, who's there for summer session B, which has started 2 weeks ago from the time of this recording. So, I mean, he's behind the 8 ball a little bit. Now you have Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, Lorenzo Lingard, who was there from January, Robert Burns, who's been there for 2 years now and hopefully might be, healthy, and Trayon Gray. That's 5 guys. Plus, you now have a quarterback who carried the ball more than 100 times as well. So if you want to loop him in, that's 6 guys carrying the ball who you would probably have in front of Cam Davis. You might see Cam Davis get a little bit of burn, maybe in the bowl game, maybe in the, who's our sacrificial lamb? Oh, Savannah State, in the second week of the season. You might see him a little bit on that to do the whole play in 4 games or up to 4 games and keep your red shirt kind of a thing. But yeah, I would foresee that Cameron Davis is not like high in the rotation.
All right. Tons of questions and comments. Please don't ask questions like, should Miami recruit elite offensive linemen instead of focusing on average offensive linemen? I think we can all basically settle on that one. But I do think that there's a decent question. I may have lost it in regards to when Cam's ready to go right here again. And I don't want to keep him on the line too long, but great discussion here from Cam, and we'll try to have him back here fairly soon. But we've got one question from an indistinguishable handle here, but who's on commit watch going into Paradise Camp?
Good question. Yeah, so Paradise Camp is in 2 weeks. It's July the 28th. It's on a Saturday. I do not have a different professional engagement, I don't think, that day for the first time since we've started Paradise Camp. So I think I'm going to be there for the first time in person. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, no, I don't know that there's anybody who's like imminently on. Oh, there's a lizard in my house. Hey, how about that? Anyway, sorry. I don't think that there's anybody
to take care of something there. Certainly.
Yeah, no, he's over there in between the screen and the.
I know you guys don't really mind that in Florida quite as much.
Not as super much, but as long as he's on the other side of that, yeah, he's on the outside side of that thing, so he'll be all right. Sorry. Focus back.
No, anyway. I understand that one.
Commit watch, good. Let's see. I gotta bring up my last class breakdown, which you should be reading on stateoftheu.com, by the way, because I was not prepared to talk about recruiting 100%, so I didn't do too much homework. If we go down, let's look. So not quarterback, because I already talked about Michael Johnson, and even at one time it looked like he was going to come here. He's probably going to go to Penn State. At running back, you could have Kenny McIntosh, who is R.J. McIntosh's younger brother from University School in Fort Lauderdale. 6'1", 205. He's talking about, maybe a before the season kind of commitment somewhere at the end of July or beginning of August. So maybe he's a guy who could be the guy who pops. I don't think that there's anybody at wide receiver right now who's close to committing to Miami. But 5-star Georgia commit Jaden Hazelwood is going to be at Paradise Camp. That's like triple confirmed. And that's like big to get him back on campus and hopefully actually working out there. So keep an eye on that. Tight end, still waiting on Keon Zipperer to make a decision. Don't know if that's going to come too soon, but between him and Jalen Weidermeyer, Miami should get one of those dudes. At offensive line, everybody's waiting on Evan Neal. That's going to the previous comment about Miami recruiting elite offensive linemen. We've tried that and have failed previously, and hopefully we're trying that and we'll succeed with Evan Neal. 6'8", 360 pounds. Plays for Bradenton IMG Academy. He's a Okeechobee native. That's around the Orlando area for those of you who are not from Florida. And he's everything that you want in the left tackle. I mean, like I said, 6'8", 360, light feet. He moved well when he was at 395, and he's lost like 30-something pounds now, and he looks like amazing. He went to the opening, and he won his reps, or a good proportion of his reps, against the #1 player in America, Kayvon Thibodeau from Los Angeles. So yeah, he's pretty good. So that's the guy who you could watch. Defensive line might be where you're looking hardest at commit watch. Braylon Ingraham from Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas, used to play at Dillard, which is where John Ford went. And he started as a young kid, Ingraham did, on an offensive line or defensive line that had the other 3 players go to Division I. So that's Stephon Zayas, that's John Ford, and that's last name Wright. I forget his first name. Were the other 3 guys on the defensive line. They all went Division I. So he's a really good player, 6'4", 270 pounds. And yeah, he'll be a defensive tackle at this next level. So he's a guy who maybe could be on commit watch. At this point, you got to hope for Chris Bogle, defensive end from Cardinal Gibbons. Lloyd Summerall from Auburndale is 6'6", 215-pound defensive end. He's told both Miami and Florida State's staffs that he'll be at their camps. Trouble with that is they're on the same day, so you can't really be at one or the other. And I know that people are going to say, oh, well, there's a barbecue on the 27th and then the actual Paradise on the 28th. No, Summerall has told both. I've seen on lists, and I've talked to people, and they said, no, both. He's communicated that he'll be there for the camp portion on the 28th to both Florida State and Miami. So it'll be interesting to see where he pops up. But that's the guy that Miami's chasing. I mean, people are going to say Tyreek Stevenson, the All-American 5-star cornerback kind of player from South Dade. I don't think that he's anywhere near committing. But those are the guys I would say to start with, maybe. But again, I'm just kind of going back through and then maybe, please, Mark Anthony Richards, Almon Richards' little brother. Like, I mean, just come on already. I mean, there's so many of these guys. Like, just I don't think that he's going anywhere other than Miami. And Mark Anthony Richards, dude. So come on already, jump in the boat. Like, you're gonna like a Kenny McIntosh. You're coming to Miami, bro. Just jump in the boat. Like, let's get some momentum going. So there are a couple of guys, and maybe some of those names. There could be under the radar or underclassmen kind of commits, but like at this point, we're really kind of focused on 2019 kids. I mean, obviously, I'll write about the 2020 and 21 kids if they pop, but I took that to maybe mean more in the current recruiting class. So that's why I gave you some names for that.
We're on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, enjoying the conversation with Cam Underwood. Learned something and maybe about 87 things today that we didn't know before. So hope you love the conversation and the insight, the knowledge, and the storytelling and the whole deal. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel because I bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. And as I mentioned off the top, this is Media Days week for the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC. I counted. I've got 14 contributors lined up, 14 guests, and there's more coming. So tons of content coming your way. Al Robinson making a statement for us here on the chat, and I'll echo his comments. So if you like the content that we bring you, please like, subscribe, and comment. YouTube analytics love it, and I do too by extension. And so please do that for me. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and then stop by State of the U as well to get your fill of Miami football right there. All right, Cam, it was a great time. I don't know if you have anything else for us, but definitely if you do, let her rip.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always good. I mean, I like the engagement. So, you got a little bit of a math interaction, showing some of my nerddom today, and talking about a bunch of different things. But honestly, I'm just really excited about this season. I think that Miami is going to do some really good things. I've already secured some stuff for my trip to Dallas for the season opener against LSU. So my mother lives in that area, so I go see her. But then this time, I think I'm going to just have dinner with her and then be with my friends and other Canes fans for the rest of that interaction. But yeah, just really excited, and I think that we're still trying to keep you 100% covered over on stateoftheu.com. We have a lot of great things going on. We have a Games We Love bracket, which is down to the Elite Eight of your favorite Miami Hurricanes games of college football history. We have Build a Perfect Cane. We have our position previews. We have our X's and O's analysis. Our guy Justin Tattavio, he's written a couple of those, and I think there's one queued up even for Monday. So you get a look at some schemes. So if you really want to dig on X's and O's, he's a current coach who coaches football at the high school level and goes to conventions all the time. So if you want to talk X's and O's, like, he'll dig with you. So we got that going on. Also, we're doing non-revenue sport recaps. So we're looking at, women's golf and soccer and all kinds of different things as well. So, you're trying to get as well-rounded a coverage picture as possible. So, we try to have a lot of different things, some of them serious, some of them trivial. But hopefully there's something that you like. So, this is me. This is me all the time. So now if you've watched this video and heard my voice, you can now hear it as you read what I write, because I try to write in the same kind of conversational style that I speak with and everything. So, State of the U, I think that we have a great group. We're really gearing up for the season, and we have some really great coverage for you guys. So at the bare minimum, hopefully, you continue to support us and come over there. And if you're new, new people are always welcome to the family. So come on down and see what we got.
All right, we're getting some applause from Abe Mo in particular, but from some other people as well. So we appreciate it. Yeah, we try to deliver the very best, and Cam's been coming on for, I'm going to guess, I think it goes back to like 2013, so close to 5 years, and delivers each and every time. Tons of people just here in the last 2 minutes are tearing through special teams. So we'll table that.
Wait. I have time until 4. So you got another 19 minutes.
All right, special teams.
My answer is short.
I don't know what you said. You said something that just sparked the special teams conversation.
Man, I don't even know either. But okay, so we got until 4 o'clock. I'll give you that. So we're into extra time. In honor of the World Cup that just ended this morning.
And so we're going to let loose with the special teams, or we're going to table that.
No, we can take it. Let's go. I got time.
Well, I don't know that there's anything specific. It's just our punting's terrible. Kicking, punting, almost as much of a question as our offensive line and quarterback situation.
Okay.
Punting was terrible. Punting was laughable. Just a lot of comments in that range.
I don't think that. I mean, the punting did leave some to be desired. I don't think it was laughable. Even though there were some that were pretty bad. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, there were some. But throughout the year, I think that Zach Fiegels, the punter, did get better.
In the bowl game in particular, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there were some bad ones in the bowl game. If memory serves me.
There was like a bad one in there and, whatnot. But the rest of them, I mean, he worked for higher. You can see from his drop and his body positioning that his main thing was hang time. And sometimes, when you're doing that, it's a little different than he would normally or had been punting previously. Because, again, he was a true freshman. It takes some time to learn that and perfect that. So hopefully there's been progression of that between his freshman year and sophomore year. And, we do pretty well with special teams and punters. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be what it once or what it was last year. I think that there's going to be progression. Bubba Baxa is going to come in and he's going to be the kicker. He's a scholarship kicker. He's from Texas. He has a huge leg, and he needs to refine his technique. I mean, he was very good at showcases and camps, better as a junior than a senior on the field, kicking. But all the physical attributes to be a good kicker are there. He's 6'1", 195 pounds. He was an all-region third baseman for the baseball team at his high school and whatnot. So he's an athletic kind of kid. He has the ability to be consistent and repeatable with his mechanics. So we need to see that. But again, Miami does well with kickers. So even if you don't like Michael Badgley for the end of the year and everything, I get it, fine. All-time leading scorer in Miami history. He had a couple 5 field goal games, including that Georgia Tech game that we won. So, let's ease off of saying that it was terrible at kicking. It was not. So those things can be better. In the return game, we got a bunch of guys with speed. Put them back there, let them run.
All right, Kim Underwood, State of the U, talking up Miami football. Media days coming up on Wednesday and Thursday in the ACC. We get the SEC and the Big 12 kicking off on Monday. I'm all over it. 14 guests lined up, and that number is increasing by the hour. So we knocked it out early with Cam to get a preview of media days, but more importantly, your comments and questions and a numbers breakdown of what a Malik Rozier minimal improvement could mean to the passing game and ultimately to challenging the better teams on the schedule. All right, Cam, we appreciate you stopping by. It's always good.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, went a little long today, but I'm good with it. So just enjoy my Sunday afternoon. So thanks for having me as always. And as always, I will say, continue to support us. Come over to stateoftheu.com. We have a variety of voices who even sometimes we contradict each other because we're not yes men over there, and that's fine. So we have a diversity of thought and a variety of content, which hopefully you'll engage with, and a bunch of things coming up this year. So please stay with us, and we'll see you next time.
And according to NCIS Fanatic 21, I need to bring on Chris Spielman and Colin Cowherd next. Okay, we will work on doing our best. We're always asking for guest recommendations. We will do our very best. I'm not going to bank on either one of those gentlemen, but we will shoot for the stars, believe me. And again, 14 guests lined up and more to come, and hopefully Cam at some point to wrap up the media days and so forth. So please like, comment, subscribe. I only started to really trumpet that in recent months because I'm hearing that I should, and that's what YouTubers do because that's the analytics churn that you need comments and likes and obviously subscribers as well. And if you love college football and not just Miami, this is the place to be. And then, of course, State of the U. All right, Cam, good to see you. And you have a great session there at Media Days. Gathering in all the knowledge. I won't bother you too much, but if I can find an open window and you can as well, then maybe we'll have you back as soon as you can make it back.
Yeah, man, we'll work it out. So like I said, always a good conversation. You guys have a good one.